This review was made possible by contributions from viewers like you.
Hey guys, you've seen me harp on animation studios like Video Brinkado, Sparkplug Entertainment, or Crest Animation, but today I think the time has come to talk about Filmation. Filmation is the long-lived animation company behind many movies and TV shows of questionable quality, including The Adventures of Batman, Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, and The Ghostbusters. While they specialize mostly in television, they also had a handful of theatrical films to their credit. And unfortunately, it's not a very good sign when their most well-known movie is probably Happily Ever After. I made it no secret that I'm a big fan of Disney, and one of my favorite Disney movies in particular is their 1940 adaptation of Pinocchio. Luckily for us, someone at Filmation must have been a fan as well, and decided that we need an unofficial sequel to this classic film, called Pinocchio and the Emperor of the Night. Just rolls off the tongue, don't it? And my goodness, Pinocchio looks absolutely fabulous! We open on what I can only assume are the Pontine Marshes, because Italy is well known for its swamplands, where we see a steamship with sails make port with no port in sight, and it unleashes some kind of carnival from hell. Yep, we're certainly off to a cheerful start, aren't we?
Just as you said, Your Darkness, it's perfect.
Yes, a perfect spot for the carnival.
Weirdest Darth Vader quote ever. No, seriously, that's James Earl Jones playing the yet-to-be-seen Emperor of the Night. I'd make a joke about a sizable chunk of the movie's budget going into hiring him, but the animation is actually a lot better than what Filmation was usually known for. Maybe Jones is here because he owes somebody a favor? I don't know. The next morning, we see Geppetto preparing to celebrate Pinocchio's first year of being a real boy, having just finished making a cake that I can only assume he carved out of wood. And where Disney's Geppetto had Cleo and Figaro to provide us with a little comic relief, this Geppetto has a little bird named Alouette, which is the French word for lark. On top of doing absolutely nothing in this movie, and therefore being a complete waste of animation, Geppetto named his pet bird, Bird. Oh, so this is where Alpha and Omega 8 decided to name their magpie character Magpie. Pinocchio wishes that his fairy godmother was there to celebrate the day with him, and then poof, she shows up.
You heard my wish!
Would you like some cake?
Thank you, Geppetto. I can only stay a moment.
I'm due back on the set of Heavy Metal.
I'm proud of you, Pinocchio. Happy birthday.
Oh my god, what's wrong with your face?
I think he's having inappropriate thoughts about his fairy godmother.
Great. His nose isn't the only thing that's growing. She sings a song about how Pinocchio has love in his life, and she keeps disappearing and reappearing in the same place. I don't think she gets how teleportation works. But she's been here for a whole 2 minutes, which means that it's time for her to go.
Don't forget, Pinocchio. If you take your freedom for granted, you might lose it. You might even become a puppet again.
Who could turn me back into a puppet?
Sorry, I could have told you that instead of singing a pointless song, but I gotta go now. Bye!
Seriously, where do you have to be in such a hurry? You got a doctor's appointment? Getting your hair done? Your skin re-blued?
Always remember, freedom of choice. It's your greatest power. Use your freedom wisely.
I didn't even get to say goodbye.
There now, son. I'm sure she knows.
She knows you said goodbye? But the party's over, since Geppetto remembers that he has a special music box to deliver that was commissioned by the mayor.
He's paying us 10 gold pieces.
Wow! 10 gold pieces! Since you didn't tell us how many lira are in one of these gold pieces, I have no idea how impressive that is. Pinocchio asks if he can take it to the mayor, and Geppetto lets him do it since he thinks he's old enough for more responsibilities. Yeah, send your 1-year-old out running errands for you. Sounds like solid parenting to me.
My friend can keep me company.
And Pinocchio, I heard the carnival came to town last night.
Carnival?
I don't want you going anywhere near it. Those places aren't safe.
I could take you myself so you can have a safe and happy birthday, but nah. Of course, Pinocchio is immediately tempted to go see the carnival, which prompts this little wooden glow bug that he carved, voiced by Don Knotts, to come to life. What happened to the talking cricket from the original story? Never explained. Hell, Pinocchio doesn't even acknowledge his existence, or give any mention to how strange it is that he suddenly has another talking insect acting as his moral compass. By the way, it made sense for Jiminy Cricket to be Pinocchio's conscience, since he's seen enough of the world to get an idea of what's supposed to be right and wrong. What kind of guidance can G. Willikers here provide when he's only just now come to life? If anything, it should be his naivete that causes Pinocchio to stray from his path of moral certainty. I'm not going to the carnival, and I'm taking this jewel box to the mayor, and we're going straight home. Come on, Pinocchio. We can look around for a few minutes, can't we? What could possibly go wrong? Well, alright, just for a few minutes. It isn't long before he bumps into a raccoon named Scalawag, and a monkey named...
My colleague, Igor.
Igor? But they told me his name was Igor.
Well, they were wrong then, weren't they?
Anyway, these animals are supposed to be the stand-ins for the fox and the cat, which makes me wonder why they aren't just the fox and the cat. Not only does it make no sense for Pinocchio to be swindled by these two when you'd think he'd be a little wiser as far as trusting strangers goes, but if the fox and the cat were here, they could say that they've turned a new leaf, and they could muck up Pinocchio's ongoing quest to be a good boy by twisting his perceptions of morality to justify their own selfish needs. You know, like how Pintel and Ragetti had reformed in Pirates of the Caribbean too.
That chest must be worth more than a shiny penny. Terrible temptation. If we was any kind of decent, we'd remove temptation from their path.
As it is, Pinocchio looks like he learned nothing from the last time he met a couple of strangers, and he's using his freedom of choice to be a dumbass. They swindled Pinocchio out of his jewel box by trading it for a fake ruby. As a woodcarver, of course Geppetto can tell right away that it's fake, and Pinocchio runs away so that he can't be a disappointment to him anymore. If only all the bad movies I reviewed felt this guilty. He eventually makes his way to the carnival, thinking he could find a job there.
Come one, come all! It's the final night of the carnival!
Yeah, it's the final night of the carnival. The moon's crashing into the earth! He sees a puppet show in progress, featuring Twinkle, who not only has better dance moves than the amount of strings she has would allow, but is also boasted as being the most beautiful puppet in the world. And Pinocchio immediately falls in love with it. Okay, maybe if Pinocchio was still a puppet himself, him fawning over Twinkle here might be a bit more understandable, but he's a human. That's a block of wood. He knows it isn't alive. And like all puppets, Twinkle is just something for an actor to act with, like a mask or an elaborate costume. Considering that Twinkle is just an extension of the puppet master here, this is incredibly creepy. Anyway, Puppetino here recognizes Pinocchio from when he used to be a puppet himself, and he uses Twinkle to seduce Pinocchio into becoming an actor for the carnival.
You have all the makings of a big star.
Well, I might consider being a star.
Of course, you'd have to be able to sing and act.
Singing, acting, no problem. My main thing is dancing. I really am a pretty fair dancer.
Oh no! He's turning into the Nutcracker! Puppetino uses this cursed crank organ to turn Pinocchio into a puppet again. Just like every other helpless child he comes across. Anyway, G. Willikers sets off to find Pinocchio when he runs into... well, it's supposed to be a bumblebee, named Grumblebee. But these animators took the lazy way out and just made him a human with wings and an extra set of legs. Granted, the challenge that Disney's animators faced when making Jiminy more appealing than just an ordinary insect led to a creature somewhat more human than Cricket, but wow, these guys weren't even trying! Anyway, Grumblebee helps Willikers look for Pinocchio, and it isn't long before he finds him at the carnival. Wait, why did Puppetino tie up Pinocchio and Twinkle like a couple of hostages? Holy deathtrap, Puppet Man! Precisely, Twinkle, old chum! And for that matter, why did they design Willikers with 4 legs, but not give him a 4-legged walk cycle? Quadrupedal movement starts with the back leg, then the corresponding front leg, then the other back leg, and its corresponding front leg. Why go through the extra effort of drawing 2 more legs and then not doing anything with them? Willikers can't do anything to help Pinocchio, but don't worry, here comes the Fairy Ex Machina. She brings him back to life and tries to figure out what happened. I say tries because Pinocchio just lies to her about it, apparently having learned nothing from his quest to become a real boy. Seriously, what was the point of making this a sequel if all they're gonna do is go through the same beats as the Disney movie? The original book was in public domain, which was the only thing that kept Filmation from getting sued by Disney, so why not just make their own adaptation of the book? This movie as a sequel doesn't make any sense. So yeah, Pinocchio lies his head off, which of course makes his nose grow. After giving a token apology, which now has about as much weight as a piece of paper, she restores his nose to its normal size.
There's no telling how long you might have been Puppetino's slave. Puppetino's master will be very angry he lost you.
His master? Who?
I hope you never have to find out.
Yeah, that's nice and all, but wouldn't it make more sense to tell Pinocchio who Puppetino's master is? That way it might help him better to avoid him? No, of course she doesn't tell him that because, I don't know, she needs a resparkling. Before she vanishes again, she turns Pinocchio back into a real boy. Excuse me? She could turn him into a real boy at any time? Why did he have to go through all those trials and tribulations in the original story if she could always just turn him into a real boy on a whim? Or did he have one get-out-of-puppet-free card? By the way, the total amount of screen time spent on Pinocchio as a puppet is 8 minutes. Because when the major draw of the story is seeing this little wooden boy running around, of course the one thing that you absolutely have to do is show him off as little as possible. So yeah, his fairy godmother turns him into a boy again, since she could always do that, and Pinocchio tells Willikers to tell his father not to worry about him, and that he'll get his jewel box back. This, of course, gives Willikers the excuse to break away from the main story and get into more pointless hijinks with Grumblebee again. They try to get help at some insect village, they get terrorized by a giant frog, they set up for a Smurfs ripoff that doesn't even make it to pilot. This goes on forever! Why did they even bother making a Pinocchio movie when they had so little interest in making a movie about Pinocchio? It isn't long before Pinocchio bumps into Scalawag and Igor again, but they tell him that the jewel box was stolen from them by Puppetino, and they help him to follow the carnival downriver to get it back. Not that they actually care about helping Pinocchio, of course. It just so happens that Puppetino put a bounty on Pinocchio's not little wooden head.
Remember what Puppetino said.
Oh, 50 gold pieces to anybody who bring Pinocchio back to Carnival.
Ugh. If this movie was made only a few years later, that monkey would have been voiced by Adam Sandler.
Oh, 50 gold pieces to anybody who bring Pinocchio back to Carnival!
After commandeering a boat and having a brief, pointless run-in with a monster pike, which actually does hail from the waters of Italy. I have no idea if the filmmakers did the proper research to include this animal or if this was just a coincidence. They catch up with the galleon steamliner carrying the carnival.
Big ship mean big trouble.
Igor's right. We must turn around.
Not until I get that jewel box. Willikers! Did you tell Father not to worry?
Not to worry? Are you out of your mind? No!
Okay, I get the desire to not have Pinocchio be swallowed by a whale because you want your audience to think you're not just ripping off the original story, beat for beat, plot point for plot point, But regardless of the fact that they're using a ship, he's still getting swallowed. There is virtually no difference between this and what came before.
Where are we?
I fear we've sailed into the Empire of the Night.
The Empire of the Night is on a boat? I don't think the Empire of the Night would be on a boat. How much night could there be to rule over on a boat? And why is there a river within this boat to necessitate the existence of this random gondolier? He tells Pinocchio that he can take him to his jewel box, and his spooky glowing eyes don't raise any red flags for this little moron.
What's down the other way?
Down there, it's a place where children get anything they wish for. What have you always dreamed of?
What is it you desire?
Here we are.
Is it someone's birthday?
Oh no, it's like this all the time. Here, every day is a party.
And yes, that is James Earl Jones also voicing the gondolier. As such, it is so easy for me to imagine this dialogue coming out of Darth Vader. Seriously, this is how we should have seduced Luke Skywalker to the dark side.
Here we are. It's a place where children get anything they wish for. What have you always dreamed of? Fun with no rules? All the toys you want?
Pinocchio drinks and dances the night away. Again, never saw that before. Then he starts tripping some serious balls. After whatever the hell's going on here, the other title character shows up, demanding payment.
Who are you?
The Emperor of the Night.
Oh yeah, there was an Emperor of the Night in this movie, wasn't there? And while it's still bewildering how they got James Earl Jones involved with this production, at least they're putting his vocal talents to much better use.
What do you want with me anyway?
You owe us for the fun you had.
Hey!
You'll sign this, and you'll sign it now.
But I don't know what it says.
It says that you give up your freedom to me forever. You're not like my other puppets, Pinocchio. You're the only puppet in the world who has been a real boy.
Meaning that these puppets aren't actually people? They're just puppets? Well then, what was up with this earlier scene when Pinocchio was first captured by Puppetino? He's fighting for his life, then we cut to these other puppets, very clearly implying that Pinocchio was hardly Puppetino's first victim. But no, the Emperor of the Night just has a collection of puppets.
Hey look, I've got a collection of puppets too. I'm terrifying, aren't I? Yes, you are.
You're the only puppet in the world who has been a real boy. That's why you're so important to the good fairy and to me. Yes, indeed, and the good fairy will be very sorry to lose you.
So yeah, he needs Pinocchio to surrender his freedom, so I don't know, his fairy godmother will be bummed out. This guy's motivations make no sense. He puts Pinocchio in a cage, and that should be it. Pinocchio no longer has his freedom, and that's all that the Emperor wanted, so evil wins. Hooray!
Every time someone gives up their freedom, the good fairy grows weaker, and the emperor grows stronger. If the only puppet ever to get his freedom were to lose it, it would be a terrible blow to the good fairy. It might even destroy her.
Oh no! But if there's no good fairy, who will be there to not turn puppets into little boys? Seriously, what does this guy care about what happens to the good fairy? Are they rivals who have been warring against each other since before time began? Why? He only wants Pinocchio because he's the only puppet to have been a real boy. The Emperor of the Night, as far as the movie tells us, is just a spooky puppet enthusiast. What does he have to do with the good fairy? Hell, what does the good fairy have to do with the rest of the world? What would happen if she was destroyed? Is she the only entity in existence that grants wishes? If she dies, does all happiness and goodness die with her? What is the Emperor's endgame here? Anyway, he releases Pinocchio so that he can try to convince him again to surrender his freedom, using his shrunken father as a bargaining chip. What? When did he get his hands on Geppetto? What's the point of getting Pinocchio to surrender his freedom when you already took it from him a few minutes ago? What, is it like a Pennywise thing, where freedom just tastes better when one gives it to you? You'd rather Pinocchio give himself to you rather than just taking him? Oh my god, this got a lot creepier than it needed to be! So Pinocchio signs his freedom away on the stipulation that Geppetto and his friends are set free. But hey, here's a shocker. The Emperor orders them to be tossed into the dungeon anyway. Well, if you can't trust the devil, who can you trust?
If you're so strong and powerful, why did I have to sign? Why didn't you just make me into a puppet anyway?
Only you can choose your fate.
That's right. And I choose never to see you again. I'm not afraid. I choose it.
Then the Matrix of Leadership chooses Pinocchio, I think. He turns into Pinocchimus Prime, he destroys Unicron after gaining the touch, and saves the day.
Oh, Pinocchio! Pinocchio!
Pinocchio, is that you?
Father?
Oh, I love you, son. I was so afraid we'd lost you.
Why, it's daytime. We escaped the Emperor of the Night. You're big again. The Emperor's magic wore off.
Pinocchio, you're not a puppet anymore. You're real.
I am. I'm a real live boy again.
Those 3 minutes as a puppet were just terrible! Oh, and, Twinkle becomes a real girl, too. Yeah. Isn't it nice that she became a real girl without having to go through the same kind of crap that Pinocchio did? I'm so happy that she got to be a real girl just because.
What say we all go home?
Hooray for home!
Couldn't have said it better myself.
He couldn't have said it better himself, but apparently that's the best edit that we're gonna get. Then they all lived happily ever after. So that was Pinocchio and the Emperor of the Night. I guess. This was a weird movie. Granted, the original book is weird too, but as a movie, why does this even exist? This doesn't continue the story of Pinocchio as much as it just rehashes it, and not even for any good reason. If Pinocchio is going to make similar mistakes to those that he made in the first story, it needs to be because something is challenging his sense of morality. I already mentioned the fox and the cat being reformed, but still using their old tricks to do what they consider to be good, and the introduction of some new characters who might claim to know better, but actually don't, could allow Pinocchio to wonder, is it really that wrong? But as the movie plays out, it just makes Pinocchio look like a dumbass who didn't learn anything from the first story, and ergo doesn't deserve to be a real boy. Speaking of being a real boy, why even make a Pinocchio movie in the first place if you have no desire to show off the novelty of a living marionette? This isn't a Pinocchio movie. It's a movie about some kid who turns into a puppet for a few minutes. Filmation did a much better job with the animation than the kind of product that they usually make, and there were some pretty good vocal performances, but on the whole, this movie is just kind of a waste. I know that sometimes it can be fun and tempting to revisit classic characters and stories, but sometimes it's better to leave Happily Ever After as Happily Ever After. See you later.